Now, to give you a little bit of background, so these two have been friends with Amanda, our children's minister, for the last several years. And that's kind of how we met and kind of got to know each other. And then also our teenagers, for those of you who are involved in our teenage ministries, they have been going once a month for the last few months on Wednesday nights to work with you guys' ministry. And before we get into all of that, just real quickly, and you can go in whatever order makes you feel happy, tell us a little bit about yourselves, kind of who you are, your how you got to Lubbock maybe, a little bit about your families, just kind of give us a little bit of a picture into who you guys are.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Leslie Roach, and I'm from Lubbock. Been here most of my life, grew up since I was itty-bitty. None of my family lives here anymore. They all live in Austin. They all left me. I'm not married. I don't have any kids of my own, but I actually do have two kids who call me mom, Moses and Maudie from our ministry, and they've been in and out of my home, and I really do consider them my children, and it's a cool story that maybe I can share one day, but anyway, so that's, and I have a little dog named Poppy who I love.
And I'm Kristin Montgomery, and I am from here in West Texas. If you go skiing, you go through Muleshoe, and that is my hometown. I married my high school sweetheart, Chad, who's right over here. And we were gypsies for a little while. We moved along and then got back to West Texas as soon as we could. We have 3 kids. We have a 14-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, and a 6-year-old son. So life is pretty busy at our house.
So tell us, so we see this slide up here, Kingdom Come Ministries, taking church to the streets, and we see your bus outside, or at least most of us who parked in this back parking lot see your bus outside. What exactly is Kingdom Come Ministries? When you kind of give us a brief insight into what you do, who you work with. I know that you guys have expanded some of your ministries, so kind of give us a clear picture here of what you guys are doing.
Okay. Yeah, we basically take church to the streets. So our bus is our church. So everybody always asks us where we're located, and we're like, we have office space, but we're a church on wheels. So our desire, we were children's ministers for a long time at a local church in town, and we just really wanted to take church to where the kids couldn't get to church. So we take our bus, and we take it out to schools and parks, and we take church to them. So we usually feed them dinner or a snack, depending on where we're at, and we literally have church with them. And some of the things that we do or that we value is that we really live life with the people that we serve. So we don't just see them once a week. We go into their homes, we get to know their families, and our hope and desire is that as kids come to know Jesus and who he is, that whole families would be transformed. And then as whole families are transformed, that whole neighborhoods would begin to be transformed. Our mission statement for Kingdom Come is transforming families and resurrecting communities. And so we really want the communities that we serve in to be resurrected from what the enemy has tried to tell them that their place is in this world to who God says they are as a community. So that's kind of who we are.
So talk about that for just a second. Like when you say communities in West Texas, what does that mean, and who are you going to?
Well, the communities that we're in right now, we go to Stubbs Park every Wednesday night, and we've been there for almost 4 years. So we have a very sound presence there. They know the bus, they know who we are. Even if they don't come over to church, we've met them when we go door to door. We're also at Brown Elementary. We have a great relationship with Brown, and the principal allows us to come in there and pray and declare the name of Jesus, which is incredible. And we have an after-school Bible club there, and we also have a pantry that she's allowed us to put into the school. So we have a food pantry and clothes closet actually in the school there. And then we've established a relationship with Harwell Elementary. So we've been going over there, loving on their teachers, and hopefully in January we'll start a Bible club over there. And then we are working on expanding into Carlisle Park, which is just off of University and 24th kind of. And so we're working on going door to door and just letting people know who we are and that we're going to be in your neighborhood. And hopefully in the spring when it gets a little warmer, we will be in that park. And then we also go to Chapman Hill over on the east side once a month and do church over there as well. So those are kind of the neighborhoods that we're in. And
Yeah, so for those of you who don't speak Lubbock, that's like the lowest income parts of our city.
Yes, it is, yes.
And so a lot of times, if I remember correctly from our conversations, the kids that you're seeing, many of their parents are not around, some of them don't even know where their kids are at.
Yeah.
And so you are ministering to some of the most vulnerable people in our culture. Are there things about that have surprised you? I'm assuming the answer is yes. What have you encountered? Because I would imagine, and we've talked about this here at Raintree multiple times, that when you start to think about ministering not just to lower income, but ministering to folks who live below the poverty line, when you start talking about ministering to people who don't look like us and don't come from our backgrounds, how do you deal with the fear that seemingly comes with the unknown? What are your kind of thoughts on that? I didn't prep you with that question, by the way.
That's okay.
We're kind of winging
That's
it
okay.
now.
That's
You
okay.
go for it.
God really, really put in our hearts a love for that community from the very beginning. We both love the Hispanic community, which is 90% of who we work with. The hardest part, I think, for me about the families that we see is the spirit of poverty that just rests on them. There's a deep-seated hopelessness, and even in the kids that we love on have no idea that they can dream about their futures. They really feel like they're just going to stay where they're at. And so we really work to pray that away from them and encourage them to dream and to work hard and to push past where they're at now. And we're starting to see some of that fruit, which is really, really cool. As far as the fear factor, God has really taken that away from us too. More than one occasion, we've probably been in some situations and places where we shouldn't have been, but never thought about it until after the fact. And God really just has a covering of protection over us. But we never ask our volunteers or anyone that works with us to do anything that they're not comfortable with. In the parks, we do have security that's there. We've never had any situations where clicked that on and we felt like we needed it. But it does bring a sense of just protection and peace to the people who come with us, especially kids. We have your youth out there, and they are our number one priority is the safety of everyone. So we do have security, and they've been awesome. We have 2 officers who take turns on Wednesday nights, and it's been really fun to watch those relationships build because the officers have just kind of fallen in line. They have dinner with us, they play football with the kids, and they're getting to know these communities as well, and it's been a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, and what a beautiful picture considering what we've seen across
Exactly.
America over the last few years with
Yes.
this hostility that seems to exist between people of color and lower income areas and even
Yes.
police officers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful
Yes.
picture. So how did this dream come about? And I've heard this story, and I love this story, but they have not. So
Yes.
please tell us. How
It
did
is
you
a
get
fun
here?
story.
It's fun.
It is cool. Kristin and I, like I said earlier, served as children's directors at a local church in town, and I had been there since I was in junior high and then came on staff, and Kristin had worked with me for 7 of those years, so I mean, that was home. It was where we were planted, and God started stirring in our hearts. Things started happening within the church that just wasn't fun either, and so we just knew our time was kind of coming to an end, and God had done a new work in us, and we just didn't fit in anymore. And so we knew we were going to eventually have to leave, but we just didn't know it was going to be so soon. And so we just started dreaming one day, and we're like, man, wouldn't it be so awesome if we could just open up a community center on the east side of town and just love on people? And so we got all excited about it, and then I came back to Kristin, and I was like, I think we're getting a little ahead of God. Let's just kind of slow down and wait and see what God has. So a couple months went by, and it just became very, very clear that God was calling us to leave, very clear. And so we actually had a meeting with somebody, and it just became very clear that it was time to go. So the next day I came into the office and I was like, hey, just gonna let you know, I'm gonna resign from my position here. And she was like, yeah, me too. And I was like, okay. But we didn't really know what was next. Like, God hadn't really said anything yet. And so we were actually taking our ministry kids on a retreat that weekend. And so as we're going down that weekend, God begins to unfold this plan of Kingdom Come Ministries. And so we just start dreaming, really, I mean, literally it was from God, because we can't even remember, this wasn't even on our radar map prior to this trip.
Yeah.
So we just start going, and God just starts giving us this vision of a bus and taking all the seats out of it and going into neighborhoods, and it just lights a fire in us, and we just think, we got to do this. And so we come back, and I mean, we're both poor, so we didn't know how we were going to do it or what we were going to do. We were just about to quit our jobs. And so we didn't know how we were going to do it, but we knew God could. So Chad had kept seeing this bus, Kristin's husband, on Craigslist. And I was like, Kristin kept telling me, let's go look. And I was like, we don't have any money to go buy a bus. Like, we barely have money to pay our bills.
Totally
and we're just about to quit our
parade.
jobs. So I was like, we don't have time. I mean, we can't do that. We just can't. So things began to unfold, and we kept getting the same verse separately, and we started to realize that you ask anything in my name and you will be given it. And
Now, stop real quick.
Okay,
That thought.
yeah.
You were both getting this picture and these dreams of ministry and what could go forward.
Yes.
And say that one more time. You were both getting what?
The same verse.
Oh, yeah, the same verse.
At the same time.
Separately.
Yes, separately.
Just random places,
Yes.
this verse, not random because it was God planted, but
Yeah.
weird places that God planted this verse.
Yeah, we talk about the Spirit of God moving.
Yes.
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 Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
You may continue. Go ahead.
He was definitely moving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so we decided to go out and look at the bus, and so we just started claiming it that it was ours in Jesus' name. And we had told God that if you just give us this bus, so we left to go look at the bus, and believing in faith that God was going to give us the bus, that we weren't going to pay for it because we didn't have money to pay for it. So we went, and we just kept claiming that it was ours, and we told God, if you will do this for us, we will give glory to you, and we will tell in front of the whole church that what God did for us, what you did for us. And so we look at the bus, and the guys are really nice, and we kind of tell them our story, and they pray over us, and we go along our way. We come back to town because it was in Levelland. We come back to town, and the pastor calls, and he says, because it was a church that was selling it, and he says to Kristin, I'm going to plant a seed in your ministry. I'm going to drop it in half. So Kristin calls me, and I'm like, that's awesome. That's so kind and generous, but we don't even have that. So I was like, I guess we can start praying for that amount of money. And then about 15 minutes later, she calls again, and she's like in tears. I was thinking she had gotten in a car wreck or something because she was crying so bad. And he called back, and he said, the bus is yours. I've been praying, and Jesus says that this bus is yours. You can come get it. The keys will be available for you whenever you're ready. And so God literally gave us the bus. So at that point, we knew that we had heard from the Lord, and what we were doing was what he had called us to do. So so now we had to resign from our jobs officially, and that was a little scary because, again, neither one of us were in a financial position to do that, and we really thought we would just go get secular jobs, and we would kind of do this bus ministry thing on the side. God had different plans for that. And so immediately, I had invited my parents to come to town since I'm not married, and just to kind of get their blessing to leave and do what I was doing. And so at the end of that, I can remember it so vividly, them sitting in my living room and them saying to me, I'm so glad to hear you're going to get a job. My dad said to me, I thought you were going to have too much faith. And I was like, oh, Dad, no. I was like, no. Are you crazy? I'm not going to do that, like leave my job and not have another job. I can't do that. I think I literally had like $200 to my name. So they leave and go back to Austin, and immediately, it was like almost they were barely out of my driveway, and God just starts pressing on me. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and he kept telling me, if you want this, if you want the next step in this bus ministry, you have to leave your job and have no other job and trust me. And I was like, wow, I don't know if I can do that. And I kept going back to Kristin. I'd be like, I don't have this much faith to do this. She just didn't know that it was coming for her too yet. But I was like,
You can do it. You'll be fine.
yeah. So I just kept thinking, oh God. And I wrestled with him for 2 or 3 days. And I just kept thinking, God, I don't know, And, but I knew. He told me, he said, how are you going to tell these kids who have nothing that they can trust me if you can't even trust me? And so I said, okay, God. And it still makes me cry to this day because it was such a leap of faith. I wouldn't change it for the world. It has been the most incredible ride of my entire life. And I know, and I think Kristin could say the same thing, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is why I was born, that this is why I'm on this earth, is to do Kingdom Come Ministries and what God has called us to do. And so, of course, I had to call my dad and tell him that I was quitting my job, and I felt like I was calling him to tell him I was pregnant since I'm not married, and it was awful.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was so bad. I first called my mom, and I was like, maybe if I tell my mom, then she'll just tell my dad. And she was like, she wasn't having it. She was like, you need to call your dad. And I was like, crap. And so he was just super quiet.
Oh, y'all laugh, but you know you did that when you were kids. I'm gonna tell mom so that I don't have to tell my dad.
Yeah, so I called him, and my parents are both believers, but they got hurt by the church a long time ago, and so they don't attend church. And so we don't talk about God in our home a lot when I go home and stuff like that. And so when I said to him what I was gonna do, it was like crickets on the phone, and I was like, this is not a good sign. And he was like, I'm gonna have to, and I said, I just need you and mom's blessing for this. And he said, well, I'm gonna have to pray about that. That was something I never really heard my dad say. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna respect that, and I'm not gonna make a move on my part until I hear back from you. So he prayed about it, and I didn't think he was ever gonna get back to me. It was like a week later, and he finally called, and he said, I know you've been waiting on my phone call, and I've been praying, and I haven't gotten anything except for the Lord to say that this is between you and him, and that you have your mom and I's blessing, and we'll support you, and we'll be the first people who donate to your ministry. And so that was just really reassuring, and so then I had to tell Kristin, hey, I really am resigning, and here's what's happening. And so she had to go through it with her and Chad had to soul search.
Yeah, she was like, tag you're it. And so I went home, and Chad and I talked, and we have 3 kids, and we just kept thinking, how are we going to do this? He had just started a food truck, and that is not a multi-million-dollar business, by the way, but it's a lot of fun. So, we just kept saying, how, God, how are we going to do this? And on Monday morning, we got up, and I remember Chad was in the kitchen, and he was getting ready to go out to the truck for a catering, and I was curled up in my chair with my Bible, and often I just let it fall open and just see what God has. And so I did that, and it fell open to where Peter goes walking on water with Jesus, and Jesus says, step out and just take my hand, just trust me, I got you. And I knew that that's what he was calling me to do, that it was time to step out of the boat and walk to him. So I went in, and I told Chad, and thank God, when you're married and when God calls one, he calls both of you. And so he had already united our hearts, and Chad said, well, you know what you got to do. So we resigned that day. Then we got the bus. We were able to share that testimony in front of the church that Sunday. But before we even left officially our jobs, God had given us a name for the ministry, an office space,
Salary, like
6 months worth of salary.
To live off of.
And in that time, at the very beginning, we had been told, it'll take, just get comfortable, it'll take up to 2 years to get your 501. And so we pushed through and got it done, and God returned it to us in 40 days. So that was a huge blessing. And June 12th of 2015 was our first day out in the park. The bus was not ready. A wise man told us, hey, stick your flag in the sand and go for it, whether you're ready or not, because you're never going to be ready. You're never going to be ready. So June 12th, we took the bus out there. We had food and music and some friends who helped us minister, and we've been out there every Wednesday ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. So give us some specifics about like what you do with these communities. You have this beautiful dream, and you have all the makings of being spirit-led to go out and to do these types of things. So you say you go to the parks. What does a typical night at the park look like? And what do you do? Kind of,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, first of all, there's no typical when you do street ministry. So we always have plans, and they always get broken almost every time. But what we try to do every week is people will show up. On Wednesday nights, we actually have another bus that actually has seats in it. So we'll go pick up some people in the surrounding areas that maybe have lived around the park at one time, but have moved. Most of our friends are very transient, so they move a lot. And so we'll go and pick them up and bring them. And then there's a skate park in the park that we are at on Wednesday nights. And so there's always people, around. And so everybody kind of congregates when they see the bus. And everybody helps. Everybody helps get all the tables and chairs off the bus. If it's warm, we'll meet outside. And if it's cold, we meet on the bus. Like when your youth were here this last Wednesday, we were all packed on the bus. Like really people on the floor and everywhere. And so so we'll usually, we'll do like a church service. And when I say church service, it just looks different every time. But we do. We preach the word. We do communion. We take up a tithe, which is just so cool because we've been teaching them about tithing. And they actually have tithed a lot of money for people who don't have anything.
Yeah.
And we've had, I think, like over $600 in the last
Year.
of them giving
Yeah.
money. And so we've been able to buy some like new sound systems and stuff because we have to have sound out there. And so we'll do that. We'll pray with them. And then we serve dinner and we just hang out with them and get to love on them and care for them. That is really, really the heart of our ministry, is that we want them to know that we love them and that we call them friends. Like they're not just a project to us. They're not just something that we go to on Wednesday night and we deal with them. Like we really, truly love them. They've been in our homes. I've actually taken in one of our kids named Maddie, who's 18. She lived with me for a year, and she's now at Job Corps in San Marcos, hopefully working on getting her to be a nurse's aide.
CNA,
Her CNA. And so I also have the other person that I was referencing earlier that's my son is Moses, and he's older than me. He's 43. He used to be, and I say used to be, a drug addict. God has delivered him from that, and it is literally a miracle. He's been walking clean for about 3 months now, and it's been a journey with him of just showing him that I love him, that God loves him no matter what. And so that is just one thing that we just really value, is that we love our friends. They're our friends. They're not just people who we minister to. They're our friends. And so
Yeah, I think it took 2 years or more, maybe 3, before they stopped saying, "You're coming back next week, right?" They, those relationships take time, and it's trust, and everyone that they know walks out on them, gives up on them, disappoints them, and they still will say, "Miss, we're gonna have church, right?" "Yep, we're gonna have church. It's not going away." So part of that has built into Maddie and Moses, trusting and becoming a part of her family and our family.
Yeah. So you're coming to us, especially on this morning, comes at a perfect time, I think, in the movement of Raintree. We, even just over the last couple of months, we have been preaching through the Sermon on the Mount and this, your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, and what does this look like? And we talk regularly about missions not being a project, but people that are loved and cared for, that the beauty of Christ is seen in not just the sharing of resources, but in the sharing of our hearts and inviting one another in. And so when you think about a church like Raintree, and I'll just go ahead and tell y'all, I mean, we have leadership, we've had this conversation for the last little bit. I mean, we have made a commitment to you and to what y'all are doing. And our kids are already involved in helping out in whatever ways they can and befriending your friends and making friends. What does it look like for this room? What does it look like for us to partner with you? Not just on a financial level, but kind of joining you and partnering in the ministry. What places do you see folks like us being able to join you?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of places you can plug in. You can plug in for one-time things, or you can plug in and be committed and show up every week. So we, a couple of the spaces where we really need help right now is in our pantry at Brown on Tuesdays. And it is from 3 o'clock to 4:30 on Tuesdays. And we have, every Tuesday after school, we have the pantry open, and families are allowed to come down and get hygiene, uniforms if they need a uniform, food, that kind of stuff. And so we need volunteers to come in and be able to help them get all the items that they need. And then we pray with each family at the end. And so we're always needing more volunteers to help with that. Concurrently, when that is happening, we have an after-school Bible club there as well. And we would love, right now we have about 4 volunteers, and it is not enough. The kids are crazy. And so we would love to be able to have small group leaders, just somebody who would commit to 5 or 6 kids during that time, which is around the same time, about 3 to 4:30, and on Tuesdays, and just love on those kids and help them get from one center to the next, and just showing them the love of Jesus and praying for them because their needs are so great there. And so that's one way to get involved. Of course, Wednesday nights, we would love to have you out at Stubbs Park. You can always just come and just see what's happening. Like that's a great way just to come out and just say, you know what, I'm just going to come out and just hang with you guys and see what it's about. You can help serve food. You can sign up. You and your small group can sign up to bring food to us on a Wednesday night and help serve it. That's a great way. If those times just like do not work with your schedule, we are in great need of casseroles to put in our freezer so that we can pull them out later when we are like dying and don't have anything to eat on a Wednesday night. And so like the big steam pans, we had a Trinity Middle School, their moms did that for us last semester, and it has been awesome, but we've used our last one.
That's like 2 weeks ago, we're out. So.
Yeah, so we would love to have more casseroles. We're actually also having a stocking decorating party here at Raintree on the 17th from 9 to 12. So we give away 300 stockings for Christmas that are filled with toys and candy and all sorts of fun stuff. So we've had women that have been sewing those, and then we're going to have a decorating party. So if you want to come out and decorate stockings, that would be awesome.
And that's this coming Saturday.
That is. Yes, already.
Saturday. Yeah.
November's
Come
just
and hang
going
Yes.
by.
Yep.
Yes.
So go ahead and talk about that. There is a financial element, obviously, to all of this. So give us kind of a ballpark figure on like what it looks like to sustain Kingdom Come Ministries for a month or a year or whatever.
Right.
Kind of give us a ballpark figure what that looks like.
Yeah. Everybody kind of always underestimates us. They're like, oh, y'all are a little ministry. But really, God's doing big things. And so it costs money to do it.
Yeah.
So it costs us about $15,000 a month to do what we do, about $175,000 a year. And that's just for this year. It'll increase for next year because we're increasing the number of parks that we're in. We just bought a new bus. We're actually going to go pick it up in Plainview this week. And so there's just going to be more places to go, more things to do. And so that's kind of what it costs us to run in a month. And we actually also have another staff person coming on because Kristin and I just cannot sustain where we're going with 2 people. And so her name's Irene, and she's been fabulous. And she's actually raising her own support to come and be on staff with us. So that's great as well. So those are our financial outlooks.
You want to, and I want to make sure we're kind of bringing the story together in front of everybody. You see that in 4 years, you've gone from quitting your jobs, wondering if you're going to have enough money, to having a ministry that does a little less than $200,000 of worth every year. Like that's big.
Yeah.
That God is blessing and working.
Yeah.
So tell, just real quick here, kind of towards the end, what other dreams do you have? Because you talk about expanding, you talk about a new person coming on, you talk about places you're going to be and adding another park. What do those dreams look like going forward?
That's a fun question.
Yeah, we have lots and lots of dreams.
Yeah, we really love to dream big with God.
I'm going to tell them about the love ambition, and then why don't you tell them about the
Okay.
building? How about that?
Okay, yep.
So we kind of have this new thing, and Kristen's probably going to be like, what? Because we kind of talk about it, and then we kind of come back around to it. But anyway, we want to do this thing called a love ambush. And so we had seen it done in another ministry where they had gone to Tijuana, and they had gone to the people who are actually living in the landfills there. And the people who went on the trip would bring a china plate, and they would set up a meal in the trash dump there in Tijuana, and they would serve steak tacos because that's their favorite food. So we would like to do we want to start doing love ambushes around the neighborhood that we're in. And so there is, in the park that we're in on Wednesday nights, there's a thing called the game room, but there's really no games in there. They just sell drugs.
Yeah.
And so what we would
dark.
like to do is do a love ambush at the game room. And so show up and put out tables with fine china and serve them a meal that they would love, and just minister the love of Jesus to them. And hopefully, and Moses is going to go with us, my son who's been delivered from using drugs.
Yes, 2 white women in the hood at the game room.
Yeah.
We need a little validity, so
Yeah.
Moses is going to go with us.
Yes.
And my husband doesn't know about any of this, so he's like, you're going to do what? It's good. It's good.
We offer marriage counseling at
Yes.
Raintree too. So
I might need to talk to you after that.
that's fine. Yeah.
And then there's also an apartment complex that's kind of across the way that really nobody ever wants to go to. And there's a lot of crime there, a lot of violence there that we would like to do a love ambush at. Both of those places are within walking distance to get to the park on Wednesday nights. So we're going to introduce them to Jesus. We're going to trust that Jesus is going to show up and do what only he can do and transform lives. And then hopefully they can come to the park and continue their relationship with Jesus. So that's
Yeah.
one of our dreams.
Yeah, long term is that the light would replace the darkness that's there, and we would get to see that community completely transformed and revived. So, and then another one of our dreams, there's actually a building. How much time do I have? A couple minutes?
Till Jesus comes back.
Okay.
You're good.
So, because it's a cool story. So, there's a park. There's a building across the street from the park that we'd never really noticed. Didn't pay any attention to. It was overgrown with weeds and pretty run down. And it's actually happened at the beginning of our ministry. Leslie and some other friends of ours were prayer walking around the park, and God brought that building to her attention. And so she just walked over to kind of look at it and see what it was. Well, it was an abandoned daycare. There were homeless people who had been inside, and it was in pretty bad shape. But when she got closer, God just kind of downloaded. The Holy Spirit just pressed on her. This is your building, and I want you to revive it into a daycare for the families that you serve. And most of our families, that's a big financial burden. They want to work, but they don't make enough money to pay for quality childcare for their kids. So she came back the next day and said, Kristin, we got to go pray over this building. God told me that it's ours, and he told me what he wants us to do with it. So we did. It's actually 2 buildings on an acre of land, and there's kind of a circle drive that goes in between the buildings. So we crept up into that circle drive and really just got down on our knees and just prayed over the land. And during that time, a daycare wasn't really in my vision. But we had said, God, whatever you have for us, we'll do. So completely open to it, but also wanted a sign. And I don't know that I had ever really prayed for a physical sign from God. God, I just need you to show me something, that this is your will. So we went home that afternoon, and it was in May, and it was one of those Mays a few years ago where we got torrential downpour, which in Lubbock is not normal. The name of the daycare was the Magic Rainbow.
Yeah,
Remember that?
abandoned
Yeah,
daycare.
the abandoned daycare was the Magic Rainbow. So, hang on to that. So Leslie was at her house, and she looked out her front window, and there was a rainbow, and it was literally in her front yard. So she ran outside, and the end of the rainbow was planted right in her front yard, and so she took it. This is definitely the sign that we were praying for. So she's trying to call me, but I'm on the other side of town with my family in the car, and we're on our way to dinner, and I'm not answering. I'll call you later, because I'm literally looking outside my car window, and the other side of the rainbow was right outside my window. My kids were screaming. We were all, do you remember that? We could have just ran our hand through it. It was the coolest moment. So when we touched base later that evening, she said, "Oh, you're not going to believe what happened to me." And I said, "Oh, I believe, and guess what?" Mm-hmm. So we really took that as our sign that this building is ours, and we're waiting on God to give it to us. Mm-hmm. We've written a letter to the owners and asked them to donate it to us, and they were not interested at that time. And so we're just waiting. We've prayed around that land numerous times, which is another thing that if any of you are just prayer warriors and really have that on your heart to go and march around our building for us, we would love that too. So that's something you could do. But it'll be eventually our headquarters and a daycare for our families.
Yeah. Yeah, I love there's a boldness with both of you that I have appreciated since getting to know you. There is an expectancy that you have for God to move, not just in your own life, but in the world around us. And these are the stories the church needs today. We have enough about what's broken. We need stories of people who've just said, "I literally will give you everything, and I expect you to be good." And then, shockingly, God is good.
Yeah.
And he brings about the kingdom. We've got one more thing that we're going to ask you to do even here, and this will be maybe the only time I ever ask people to do this during a sermon time.
Yeah.
But get your phone out if you
Yes.
have it.
Yes.
And we
Please.
would like, so here's one of the things.
Yes.
So Citibank
Yes.
is doing a community rewards contest.
Yes.
And the ministry or nonprofit that receives the most votes will receive $7,000
Yes.
towards their ministry.
Yeah.
So vote.
Yes.
Go there right now
Yes.
and
Yes.
vote.
Yes.
City.bank/community rewards. Or if you just go to city.bank, you can hit the community rewards button. And you can vote for us. We're under the basic human needs category. And you can vote for us all the way through December the 9th. And you can vote every hour per email you have.
Which is
So
a lot. We will
just
not
vote
hold
as
you
much
to
as you
that.
can.
But as much
We're
as you
just
can.
encouraging our friends to vote whenever they think about us.
Yeah.
So we would greatly appreciate your votes. Right now we're in the top 5 of our category, which guarantees us money. So if we could stay there, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after December 9th, we can detox from our phones.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
But until then,
Yes.
we want
Yes.
to get you as many votes as
Yes.
we
That'd
can.
be great.
That'd be great.
Thank
Yes.
you.
We're going to do something here to kind of finish up service, kind of finish up our time. First is we have a next step after class that will be hosted here in the worship center, and that is our new member visitors kind of get to know you. And so I'll be leading that up here at the very front of the worship center when it's over. But Leslie and Kristin are going to be at the table out in the big hallway, and they are going to be willing to talk about any of their ministry. They would love to show you the bus that is outside. They want you to kind of see and learn a little bit more, which is the reason why we're not going to be doing the gym class. For those of you who are looking for or feel compelled, or maybe God has already been working on you of places to join the kingdom efforts, you're not going to find a better ministry than Kingdom Come. And so that is why our leadership has made a commitment to you. We want to do one final thing for you. One of our shepherds, John Crumpler, we would love for you to come down here onto the floor, and we would love for John and all of our leadership, and then as many of you who can get up here, we would love for it to be crowded and awkward, to come up and to circle up around Leslie and Kristin and to pray over them. And so that's how we'll finish this part, and we'll have one final song here at the end.